Happy Monday. I just wanted to go over the changes for this year's AP exam due to our distance learning and not being able to take the test in school. So I'll probably post this website or link on Google Classroom as well, but I just wanted to go over the details with you. So if you haven't heard already, the exam is changed from 3 hours and 15 minutes to a 45-minute exam. So a couple things. Let's go over the exam schedule first. So I know most of you are only taking AP Euro and AP Bio, but there are some of you that are taking multiple AP exams. So this is the complete schedule for all the exams. Ours will be on Wednesday, May 13th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So this is a change from originally we were going to take it on May 6th. So it gives us an extra week or so um, to prepare for the exam. But because it's going to be at home and it's only going to be 45 minutes now, they wanted to test you on your skills of the content rather than just the content knowledge in general. So that means they're going to be using the DBQ to test your knowledge. So if you go through, that changes a couple of things. So first thing being that since it's at home, it'll be an open book, open note exam. So what that means here is if you click on this link, it'll take you to this page. So an open book slash open note exams are not easy. This is what the College Board says. So answering AP exam questions takes more time than copying information from notes. So the reason I chose the DBQ is really to focus on the skills that you've learned and be able to apply information rather than just looking up simply what mercantilism is and defining it. Okay, so you're going to have to do a few things. But since the DBQ is normally an hour long, they shortened it and is now going to be 5 documents instead of the 7. So they're going to present 5 documents that you'll need to use. And I'll go over that in a little bit more detail in a second. But so here it says more materials aren't always better. You'll still need to prepare for the exam. Your classmates are better than internet searches. This is really true in that you should make yourself some type of outline. So I know I provided the study guides for you. So those are a great start to have out with you because you just won't know what the DBQ is going to be on. It'll probably be on a broad spectrum. A lot of the other AP teachers that I've talked to think that it's going to be some type of like comparison of time periods so that we're looking at more than just one specific area for the DBQ. Remember, you're going to have to be able to read the documents and understand what the primary and secondary sources are saying. So it is really good to have those study guides with you as well as key concepts and their definitions will be a lot faster to have out in front of you than just simply trying to like search for things because again you only have 45 minutes. I know, so 45 minutes to review the documents, to write an essay. It's a lot going on, so you'll definitely want to have everything ready. um, so the AP access AP exam defines that collaborating with others is not considered acceptable open notes. So just using the notes that you have in front of you. Obviously, a lot of these things will be hard to put in place, but the AP exam will have features that you have to adhere to on the computer. So for example, they're going to say that you have to log in 30 minutes before the exam. I think there's like a lockdown browser, a couple steps you have to do before you can start the exam. So it's really recommended that you sign in our in their system 30 minutes. So that means 3:30 for you guys. As well as when you're done, there'll be a timing feature so that you can keep track of your time and how long you have left. And then once you are done, you submit it, and then you have a certain small window, I think it's like 5 minutes, to actually upload your exam. Now, you can handwrite it or type it. However, I really recommend typing it because it just saves a lot of time of having to take a picture, upload it that way. So It's faster to just type it. Plus, you don't have to worry about weird lighting, them being able to read it, or if the handwriting is kind of not clear through the image. So it just makes it easier and faster to type your answer. Okay, so that's a little bit of the exam here. Um, let me get the uh, 1 second. Let's see. Okay, so here is the rubric for the new AP exam based on the 45 minutes and 5 documents. So it's very similar in the way all the elements that it's looking for, it's just down, it's shrunk, okay? So they're still looking for contextualization and your thesis statement. And then here it gets into the nitty-gritty of what you need to do with the documents. So the first is accurately describe the content of at least 2 documents to address the topic of the prompt. Okay, so out of the 5 documents, 2 of those documents, you have to explain how they, first, what are they saying, and how that relates to what the topic of the question of the DBQ. Okay, so then you're going to use those documents to support whatever argument you're making about whatever they're asking. So it supports an argument in response to the prompt using at least 2 or 4 documents. So 2 for 1 point, 4 for 2 points. So obviously you want to use 4 documents. These documents should meet and exceed the standards set for the description point. So you need to, once you make your argument and decide what you're going to be writing about, how to answer the prompt, you need to use 4 documents to support that argument. And then furthermore, so for 1 or 2 documents, explains how or why the document's point of view, purpose, historical situation, and or audience is relevant to the argument. So then you'll take 2 documents and explain what the point of view is or the purpose of that document and how it relates to what the thing they're being asked, okay? So you're still using the documents in 3 different ways, and you'll use specific historical evidence beyond what's in the documents. So this is really where your knowledge comes in, um, that's relevant to your argument. Okay, so remember, this is like the unicorn. This is where, before we get to the unicorn point. So really putting in total context, so this should be done throughout the paper, of what is happening beyond just the time period being asked, okay? So last is demonstrates a complex understanding of the historical development that is the focus of the prompt, using evidence to corroborate, qualify, or modify an argument that addresses the question. So really connecting these two gets you that unicorn point. Simply mentioning another historical event that relates to the topic being asked or your argument, and then explaining how those work together is the complex understanding here. Okay, so they're still going to be doing the rubric and still asking for the same things, just like we've looked at this before, but it's just going to be condensed, so less documents. Again, 4 out of 5. The 4 is required out of 5, but you should practice using 5 just in case you don't understand what one of the documents means, or you use it incorrectly to support your argument. So you get a freebie document, so that's why it's always good to use the maximum documents provided, just in case one of the documents you mess up for whatever reason, or they think you used it incorrectly. So that's the rubric. That's the tips on the AP exam, and as well as how you should take the exam with a time constraint. Oh, there is makeup exams for whatever reason. I think it needs to be approved if you cannot make the initial exam date on the 13th. There's a series of things you need to do in order to take it at the later date. This is not something that you can just pick to take at the later date. You do have to get approved for it. And if you have extended time, those will still be used and met. Any accommodation that you have will still be met with the new AP exam. So really the biggest issue, I think, is going to be the time constraint, trying to figure out, read the documents and everything in that 45-minute time frame. So you really need to know the content really well to just review the document and start forming an argument and writing about it. Now that leads me into our next topic. I know we looked at communism, or excuse me, Marxism and Darwinism, and how those things were related and worked with socialism, and how we see them develop and change over time. You did your infographic on that. So you did your infographic on that. A lot of you were linking Marxism adapting and changing into communism, as we'll see in the 20th century. But remember, we're really focusing on the time period leading up to World War One. So having that knowledge, though, is great for contextualization if they ask a question on Karl Marx and his theories on production. And then that got me thinking, some of you were talking about um, Karl Marx's comments on production, food production in particular, and the class system. And then I realized that while we didn't specifically hone in on the term capitalism, we have talked about um, the progress of capitalism at this point, up to this point, several times throughout the year. So I just wanted to review that and go over that in case it wasn't apparent for some of you. So capitalism is the economic system based on a free market. It has open competition. Profit is usually motive and private ownership of means of production. And it also encourages private investment and businesses. And we saw this through Adam Smith, who's considered to be one of the first modern or economists, excuse me, through his ideas of laissez-faire. We saw this when we went over mercantilism earlier in the year. In his definition of capitalism, he put in the inquiry into the nature and causes of the wealth of nations. So he argued that opposed government. So he really opposed government intervention in order to let the people follow their own enlightened self-interest. So really, less regulation is what Adam Smith was a proponent of, having that open markets that people could conduct on their own. But we also looked at capitalism in its first growth when we look back at imperialism. Now, we first looked at mercantilism capitalism, which was a little different, and we saw the expansion of the trade and business networks basically starting to be driven as a consumer-based economy. And we see that mercantilism has the beginnings of capitalism. We first see this come about in the 16th and 17th centuries, but we also see it when we start to see the age of exploration in the importing and exporting of goods and tariffs being um, placed on some of the products. And then we see investing in capital instead of labor in the 17th, 18th century. So we see labor in some venture in order to make a profit. So the bourgeoisie used money in order to make money in the 17th and 18th centuries and invested this in chartered companies and like joint stock companies. And we also see capitalism used with the Dutch in their East trade companies. So we see a lot of the points of capitalism and the benefits of capitalism. We also talked about this during the Industrial Revolution as well, and all of the advancements that we see and make there. So all of these things are tied into capitalism. So if you were asked about a question of capitalism and how the change of it over time and the benefits of it, you would hit on all these points. But we're going to get into capitalism as we know and see today because it has adapted so much um, into the 20th and 21st century. We start to see other schools of economics um, that are placed into capitalism, and it starts to change as far as the just basic definition. So we'll get into that a little bit more, but after the exam, because it's not the latter part of it, in particular the 20th and 21st century, is not on the exam. But I just wanted to make sure I pointed that out so that you are aware that we have covered capitalism in different early stages and how it has changed during European history, and Adam Smith being a really big key person in the beginning of the ideas of what we know as modern economics today. So if you have any questions on the AP exam or just what we've looked at capitalism so far, please let me know. And I will be posting your assignments for this week. Now, I know we only have today and tomorrow. Wednesday is not a distance learning day. So I will post your next assignment probably later today if you want to get started. Um, It'll be first an ed puzzle, and then we'll be looking at comparing old imperialism to new imperialism. But that assignment won't be due until after your spring break. So if you have any questions, please shoot me an email. Have a great day.